The president's travel ban comes to a grinding halt hours ahead of it going into effect.
A Flathead woman changes her plea in a Creston murder case, admitting to a drug charge.
And we meet a Mission Valley teenager with the courage to be himself.
Powered by the Montana Television Network. The KPAX 10 o'clock news starts right now in high definition.
Good evening, I'm Jill Valley.
And I'm Dennis Bragg. President Trump's revised immigration order is on hold. Tonight, a federal judge in Hawaii put the brakes on the president's plan to control immigration just hours before it was supposed to go into effect.
The president learned of his legal defeat while on a campaign-style trip to Nashville. Craig Boswell has more from the White House.
President Trump's revised executive order on immigration will not take effect Thursday. On Wednesday, U.S. District Judge Derek Watson issued a temporary restraining order against two key parts of the measure, including the ban on immigration and travel for citizens from 6 predominantly Muslim countries.
We truly felt that it was discriminatory and a violation of the Constitution.
The state of Hawaii challenged the order, arguing it would hurt its tourist industry and harm foreign students and its Muslim population.
This ruling makes us look weak.
The president mentioned the legal defeat during a campaign-style rally in Nashville.
We're going to fight this terrible ruling. We're going to take our case as far as it needs to go, including all the way up to the Supreme Court.
At an earlier stop in Michigan, he promised cheering auto workers he would review tough fuel efficiency standards imposed by the Obama administration.
We want to be the car capital of the world again. We will be, and it won't be long, believe me.
While the president was out of town, lawmakers continued to chase down his charge that former President Obama spied on him. So far, Mr. Trump has provided no evidence.
I don't think there was an actual tap of Trump Tower.
On Wednesday, the president finally broke his silence.
Wiretap covers a lot of different things. I think you're going to find some very interesting items coming to the forefront over the next 2 weeks.
FBI Director James Comey will testify on Capitol Hill about Russian hacking into the presidential election next week. Craig Boswell, CBS News, the White House.
Turning now to weather, another wet day for us tomorrow. Again, here's Chief Meteorologist Aaron Yost joining us now with more and our first forecast. Aaron.
The good news is we do have a brief lull in the immediate future. By tomorrow evening, we should see some sunshine that'll carry over into Friday, but another system on the way by this weekend. Here's downtown Hamilton earlier this afternoon from our First Security Bank iCam. You can see those gray skies and some wet roadways there. They continue to stay on the wet side. We are starting to see those snow levels drop a little bit, and they will actually drop to around 4,000 or 5,000 feet overnight tonight as a cold front pushes through. But we're already starting to see some other weather-related impacts, and that is flooding. We have a flood advisory out for portions of Sanders and Mineral counties through tomorrow afternoon. I've got the full forecast coming up.
Montana state lawmakers voted against paying certain benefits to firefighters who develop cancer or other diseases in the line of duty.
MTN's Eric Clemens reports while lawmakers insist they support firefighters, but they say taking up a dangerous profession was their choice. Eric?
Dennis, firefighters statewide have fought for benefits like those that would have been provided in Senate Bill 72 for years. But some state lawmakers say those benefits aren't necessary. They say firefighters knew the risks when they took the job. Montana Senate Bill 72 would have provided firefighters under the big sky a safety net, help dealing with diseases which developed in the line of duty. Diseases like cancer. Mel Holtz with the Frenchtown Rural Fire District says it's something they've been working on for years.
And we were hopeful that this year looked like we were gaining the support needed. It passed the Senate, several other agencies, and people endorsed the bill and helped get it through.
But that bill, despite support in the Senate, died in the Montana House Business and Labor Committee Wednesday morning. The vote was 10-9. Committee Chair Mark Noland says killing the bill is not to be taken as lack of support for Montana firefighters.
That is not the intent of anybody's ideas here. These wonderful men and women, I don't know if I see any women out there that do put their lives on the line. I mean, but they're choosing to take a profession, and we are so grateful that they're educated and they choose to get trained and they choose to do those things so grateful. I mean, we can't say that enough, but that is their profession. That is what they chose, and we do not want to, slight them in any way, shape, or form. But this is something that they're going into with their eyes wide open.
Other committee members could not bring themselves to follow that line of thought. Casey Schreiner of Great Falls made his support for the bill clear, as well as his dissent with the committee's decision.
We would never sit here or stand on the House floor and make those sort of comments about those who go overseas to fight for our country. And we wouldn't ever say we're not going to cover their costs if they get shot in the line of duty, because they had their eyes open and knew what they were getting into. Not one person would say that here. So what we're doing is we're saying the folks that are actually staying at home and doing this public service are less valuable. I'm telling you, Mr. Chair, I'm disgusted. This is literally what we are sent here to do, to make decisions that are in the best safety and security of our state. And we're putting politics ahead of lives. I hope folks are willing to go home and say this directly to the folks.
Holt says the vote is a devastating blow and could make it more difficult to recruit young firefighters.
And so for me to have to tell them to turn and say that, well, this is your chosen profession, just to, to expect this, is a hard pill to swallow.
Now, Holt says he's hopeful that some on the committee may change their vote and that this bill will eventually make its way to the governor's desk. Dennis?
Thanks, Eric. In the court news tonight, a Flathead Valley woman accused of ordering the murder of a 34-year-old Kalispell man admits her guilt to a drug charge but won't face accountability to murder. Flathead County prosecutors dropped that charge against 29-year-old Melissa Crone in district court today. Crone and 3 others, Robert Whittle, David Toman, and Christopher Hansen, were arrested last June following the discovery of Wade Radio's body in a creek near Creston. Crone admits in the plea agreement to dealing meth last June, but maintains her innocence in corresponding to Radio's murder. Judge Dan Wilson will decide Crone's fate during a hearing scheduled for May. Whittle was convicted of Radio's murder in October and is serving more than a century in prison. Cases against the other 2 defendants are still pending.
It is a story about unconditional love and support for a Mission Valley teenager, one who made a very brave and honest decision about the rest of his life, a decision he hopes will help other kids who struggle with who they really are. I went on special assignment and met a kid who has the confidence and the courage to be himself.
I think around maybe 4th, 5th grade, I was like, hey, this isn't who I am. I'm not meant to be a girl.
He is just 15 years old, but Josh Crumley is confident about who he is. He was born female, but at a young age realized what he felt in his heart and what he saw in the mirror didn't match. Years of soul searching led him to a realization, and when he was in the 7th grade, sat his mom Mary down for a talk.
That same day I went home, I was like, Mom, can I tell you something? She's like, what? I was like, how would you feel if I said I wanted to be a guy? And she'd be like, well, I'd love you either way, guy or girl. You're still my baby and I'm going to love you forever. And I was like, Mom, I'm transgender.
That revelation did not shock her. Mary knew her daughter felt different. And when the pieces finally fell into place, it didn't diminish her love for her son.
I was worried about how it would change Josh's path. I worry about Josh being picked on. I worry about him being bullied. 50% of transgender people are suicidal or will be suicidal at some point in their lives. And to me, that was the most important thing, was to support him so he felt like he could be his genuine self.
His family was there this February when in the Lake County Courthouse his name was legally changed from his birth name to Josh. Josh did struggle with anxiety and depression. He had trouble fitting in at his old school. He was bullied for being different, challenged in every bathroom he tried to use. This fall, he enrolled at Two Eagle River High School in Pablo, where he could be a student, a friend, just a freshman named Josh. Ever since Josh started coming to Two Eagle River School, he hasn't wanted to miss a class. This is a very inclusive place. In fact, Josh is one of 4 transgendered students here.
I think it's the native values. I believe that they don't judge, people. They take them as they are. You don't see very many cliques in this school. When you go out to the lunchroom, there's not this group's in here, and the divisions you see in other schools. So we're just more open and accepting.
Native Americans have had transgender people in tribes, going back probably thousands of years. They were referred to as two spirits. It's been actually looked at by some tribes as a blessing, that they do have both qualities.
Mary is proud of the way her son is speaking out about LGBT issues, wanting him only to live a life free of fear and be the person he wants to be.
Sex and gender are two totally different things to me. Gender is what's in your brain and how you identify. Your sex is what's in your pants and what you were identified with at birth. Part of the lesbian, gay, transgender, bisexual community, it's hard for them to be who they are because that should be going on because we're all human, and no matter what, we need to stick by each other's side and just prove that.
Now, Josh told me he wants to be either a photographer or a lawyer when he grows up. So I gave him some career advice. I said, be the lawyer, because we need more lawyers like you, and then you can do photography in your spare time.
It's probably a better paying hobby.
Right?
All right, thanks, Jill. Coming up after a wet week, a cold front is moving through the region. Aaron has details on how that could impact your commute tomorrow morning.
And a massive hack of personal information on Yahoo accounts may have been spearheaded by Russians. We'll have an update on that investigation coming up on KPAX.
You're watching MTN News with Jill Valley and Dennis Bragg. Storm Tracker weather with Aaron Yost and sports with Derek Berkeley. This is the KPAX 10 o'clock news in high definition.
I feel like some of those snowbanks are melting faster than I anticipated, so that gives me more hope as we look at spring on Monday.
Yeah, Monday's the first day of spring, and a lot of us here at KPAX are loving that those snowbanks are melting because we have about 4 new parking spots.
Yeah, it was great. I actually walked outside today and it was like the first day I can remember saying, do I really need a jacket? I mean, it was almost right at the edge.
It's funny you say that. Our high today was 58. It's the warmest we've been so far this year.
Well, that makes sense. I'm not just crazy then.
Yep. We haven't been this warm since the middle of November last year. So yeah, right around the corner, folks. Baby steps, but we're making it little by little. Before we kick off the forecast, Terry Warford, thank you for this great shot. This was taken this afternoon over Flathead Lake, an image a lot of us are getting used to over the last several days. We've seen a lot of rain. We've seen some gray skies, and it's just been kind of eerie and sort of ominous out there. We've continued to see that ridge of high pressure just to the south of us, providing us with dry conditions and well above average highs. We're on the northern fringe of that, and in that flow we have continued to see all of this moisture being transported our way, much like today. Now when you flip that other side of things, we are dealing with a trough of low pressure in the eastern United States. I'm sure you heard about that huge system in the northeast. Dropped anywhere from 30 to 40 inches of snow in upstate New York and even portions of Pennsylvania. It's been crazy over there, but right now that is slowly starting to move out. We, though, are still dealing with the wet weather. Here's a look, the radar over the past 3 hours, nice loop so you can see where things came from, where they're going. Lookout Pass, Lost Trail Pass, Lolo Pass, dealing with rain showers throughout much of the day today. We are slowly starting to see those snow levels dropping. We've picked up officially at the airport in Missoula 1/100th of an inch of rainfall, in Kalispell just under 1/10 of an inch. But we have seen some wet conditions, and that's starting to take a toll on area rivers, streams, and creeks. We do have a flood advisory for small streams until 1 p.m. on Thursday for portions of Sanders and Mineral counties where we are dealing with those impacts. Spokane County, so just a little bit further to our west, declared a state of emergency today after flooding and roads being washed out. There are way bigger problems just to the west of us, so we can say thank our lucky stars that we haven't seen as much rainfall as those folks have. This was the 2 Medicine eye cam shot in Glacier National Park earlier today. You can see the rain there on the lens. Water currently running over Highway 2 4 miles east of Marias Pass. So again, things just really wet, and we've got some really saturated soil out there. It doesn't have much place to go, that water, so it's going to pond. Here's our time lapse in Missoula St. Patrick Hospital eye cam. 50 our current temp. We had 58 for our high. That's 8 degrees above average. Kalispell, we hit 45, currently at 39. We've got that for Trout Creek. Knoxon at 37. Florence at 48, Columbia Falls calling with 42, Hamilton at 49, and Stevie at 50. Weather spotters, you rock. Statewide made it into the low 70s in Billings today. They're a little bit closer to that high pressure. For us, though, not that warm. Our lows tonight above freezing. Over the next 24 hours, we will see a cold front move through. That'll drop snow levels briefly overnight tonight to pass level. So if you have travel plans tomorrow morning for Lookout Lolo or Lost Trail Pass, you might run into a couple of inches of snow. Otherwise, decreasing clouds, decreasing showers tomorrow. After that cold front moves through, we've got kind of a lull that'll take shape for us and keep things dry, quiet, and even a little bit sunnier as we head into your Friday. Friday morning, we could see a foggy start. Highs are going to be right around average here for the extended forecast. We'll see a couple of days where it's above, a couple of days where it might be below, but this is a pretty typical forecast as we head into spring, which again starts on Monday.
Well, still ahead on KPAX News, social media guidelines are expected following that online scandal involving thousands of Marines.
And the Federal Reserve raises its short-term interest rate for only the third time in nearly a decade. Stay with KPAX for all the details coming up.
Powered by the Montana Television Network. The KPAX 10 o'clock news continues in high definition.
The Justice Department is charging 4 people it believes hacked 500 million Yahoo accounts.
2 of those individuals work for the Russian Federal Security Service.
The defendants targeted Yahoo accounts of Russian and U.S. government officials, including cybersecurity, diplomatic, and military personnel.
According to the Department of Justice, 2 officers with the Russian Federal Security Service, commonly known as the FSB, were the masterminds, and while the 2 paid hackers may have used stolen information to, quote, line their pockets, the DOJ believes the FSB officers likely had other motives, like gaining access to secret intelligence info. One of the hackers indicted by the DOJ was arrested in Canada yesterday, while one of the FSB officers was already in custody in Russia. He's one of 4 people charged with spying on the U.S., according to a lawyer for one of the men. Authorities are investigating a crash that killed 3 airmen during a military training exercise in New Mexico yesterday. A spokesman for Cannon Air Force Base said the 3 airmen on the U-28A aircraft were part of the 318th Special Operations Squadron. Their identities were being withheld until next of kin are notified.
The Marine Corps is expected to introduce new social media guidelines soon. This after nude pictures of female Marines were posted online without their permission. A U.S. defense official says the guidelines will clarify the punishments that can be applied to social media sexual harassment. It's in line with other forms of sexual harassment. Marine Corps Commandant General Robert Neller condemned those who posted the photos to private Facebook groups without the consent of those subjects.
Federal Reserve is raising its short-term interest rate by a 1/4 percentage point. That brings the current overnight rate to a range between 0.75% and a flat 1%. It's only the 3rd time the Fed has raised rates since lowering them to 0 in 2008, and there's likely more to come. Fed officials say there could be 2 more rate hikes this year. Central Bank Chair Janet Yellen has cited economic robustness and resilience to shocks for that increase. Wall Street reacted positively to the news. The Dow closed up 120 points for the day. Much more ahead on the 10 o'clock news, including an in-depth look at how those proposed changes to health care are going to impact you.
Our chief political reporter breaks down exactly what an Obamacare repeal and replacement could mean for Montanans. Next on KPAX. As Congress wrestles with the replacement for Obamacare, state and healthcare officials are debating how the changes are going to play out right here in Montana.
MTN's Mike Dennison has been taking a closer look at both the effects of the Affordable Care Act and what might replace it.
In many respects, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, has done some good in Montana. The percentage of Montanans without health insurance has dropped from 20% down to about 5%. Federal money has poured into the state, both for expanded Medicaid coverage and subsidies for private health insurance, about $450 million last year alone. That money ended up in the pocket of health insurers, hospitals, physicians, pharmacies, and other healthcare providers. The Republican rewrite before Congress would substantially change current law. So, who might benefit and who might not? For starters, if you're covered by Medicare, the federal insurance plan for the elderly, or an employer-sponsored health plan, there's not much change. That's 2/3 of the state population. But what about the 238,000 people covered by Medicaid, the state federal coverage plan for the poor and disabled? The GOP plan goes to block grant funding, giving states a set amount of money to serve this population. Many worry this move could end up shrinking that coverage.
I think that when it becomes a block grant, there's a cap on the number of dollars that are coming into Montana for those services, and it doesn't always match the need, and so a lot of times the state will have to make up the difference.
And for the 80,000 Montanans who've been buying their own health insurance, they get tax credits rather than subsidies to help pay for it. Analysts say the GOP tax credits provide a lot less money to people who are poor, older, or who live in rural areas.
A lot of people are going to find out they have a lot higher out-of-pocket costs for their premiums. We think that'll discourage coverage.
The GOP plan does cut taxes on individuals, but these affect only the very wealthy. It eliminates 2 taxes that raised about $60 million in 2014 from maybe 10,000 Montana households, or the top 1.5%. The Republican plan in Washington is already taking plenty of political fire, including some from Republicans. But supporters of replacing Obamacare say changes can lead to more customer choice and lower costs. Tomorrow we'll take a closer look at some of those ideas. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Coming up, a few Montana teams tip off in the first round of the NAIA regional basketball tournaments tonight.
And one Grizzly could follow up a breakout year with something even more special. But first, he has to get healthy. Derek heads to spring practice. Coming up next.
Time now for sports with Derek Berkeley.
Division I doesn't have all of the fun this week. Another big dance started right here in Montana. The NAIA National Women's Tournament tips off in Billings. A few Montana teams hope playing in the home state could lead to an upset. 32 teams in the bracket, so we seed 1 through 8. 6 seed UM Western opening against 3 seed Columbia from Missouri. Western was down 45-37 entering the fourth quarter, but then Anise Palmore takes over in the fourth, hits that 3 to tie it. The Bulldogs outscore Columbia 21-4 in the fourth, and Western moves into the Sweet 16, 63-53. It's been a rough year for Rocky Mountain College, but as the hosts, the Bears from Billings, get into the bracket. They open against number 1 undefeated Freed Hardman from Tennessee. Rocky trailing big early, but Alicia Chamberlain there scores inside. The Bears hang tough with number 1, but the Lions move on 62-52. The NAIA men's tournament also started in Kansas City. The top seed, Carroll College, takes care of Mount Mercy 82-69. Zach Taylor has led the Saints all year. He put up 21 points, 9 assists, and 5 rebounds. Now Carroll will play Southwestern Assemblies of God University from Texas in the Sweet 16 on Friday. The D1 tournament rolls on with the final 2 games of the first 4. Providence and USC battling for a chance to take on SMU in the first round. Friars led by 15 at halftime, but then USC takes over. Inside to Chimizi Metu for the slam. Trojans give us our first big comeback of the tournament. USC marches on 75-71. Former Grizz assistant John O'Metzger-Jones now at UC Davis. The Aggies in their first trip to the big dance squared off with North Carolina Central. The Aggies were leading by 3 in the final seconds. NC Central gets 2 shots added here to tie, but they can't hit either of them, and UC Davis survives 67-63. The Aggies now get to take on Kansas in the first round. The Grizzlies are back on the gridiron. The breakout star of last year's defense could come back better than ever. But our athlete of the week, Josh Buss, is learning some patience this spring. Buss had shoulder surgery in the offseason, so he has to sit out contact drills right now, but he expects to be cleared to play this summer. The Boise native earned a starting spot as a sophomore last fall and then made a living in opponents' backfields. He led Montana with 81 tackles, with 20 of them going for a loss. The humble star gives the credit for his success to all of his teammates and to the outside linebacker position in coordinator Jason Seymour's defense that lets him roam the field.
It works out well because it's almost like a safety, safety linebacker, kind of a mixture. So I think it, fits my body type, my pluses.
Everything that we were doing last year defensively was kind of surrounded, it worked around him and him getting to the football, and he can cover people, he can rush the quarterback, and just a very, very good athlete.
Right now I'm focusing on, just getting healthy and learning everything and getting a lot of mental reps and, getting better in that aspect because I still got a lot to learn.
Buss said the injury bothered him towards the end of last year and that his shoulder already feels better. Montana held their second practice today, and now they take a spring break. The Grizz return to the field on Monday, March 27th. Staying with the linebacker theme, former Grizzly Brock Hoyle has a new home in the NFL. The Bozeman native signed a 1-year contract with the San Francisco 49ers this week. Hoyle spent the first 3 years of his career in Seattle, starting 3 games last year for the Seahawks. His good friend and fellow linebacker Jordan Tripp is staying put as the Missoula native re-signed with Green Bay today. Tripp joined the Packers in December, playing 5 games, including the playoffs. He has also suited up for Miami, Jacksonville, and Seattle in a 3-year career. We'll be back after this.
Thank you for watching. Join us on Montana This Morning.